It's the Mixed Martial Arts Hour with
the Mixed Martial Arts Hour back in your life on this Monday, April 4th, 2016. Hello again, everyone. I'm Ariel Helwani inside our New York City studio. It is raining outside once again, so I am very happy to be doing this show on a Monday with all of you and talking some MMA because holy moly, you know, I say often on this show and in interviews that I do from time to time that there's no better sport to cover. There's no better beat to be on than the MMA beat. And this past week, a perfect example of that. Just consider all that has happened since we last spoke in the last 7 days. It's truly unbelievable. A quick rundown, if you will. Last week on this show, around 2:45 p.m. Eastern, Jon Jones comes on and breaks the news himself that he was pulled over a few days prior and issued 5 tickets. Moments later, the entire media world is given this footage of him and the cop going back and forth, riveting stuff, right? Remember that. Tuesday morning, we get news Jon Jones has been arrested. He ends up staying behind bars, getting locked up for 48 hours. Well, that's just Tuesday. Wednesday, small break from that, the UFC 200 news officially announced. Most of the fights you knew about already. And then the other one that we didn't know, at least we knew about it a few minutes before the announcement. We'll get into that later on. Frankie Edgar versus Jose Aldo for the interim featherweight title on the same card as Conor McGregor. If you saw the MMA beat last week, I told you what I thought about that. And who would have thought that was a sign of things to come as far as titles are concerned. So that was a break from the Jon Jones stuff on Wednesday. On Thursday, Jones is released from jail, and we're told that the fight against Daniel Cormier is going to remain. On Friday, news breaks that Cormier is injured and out of the fight. On Saturday, we find out after some offers being thrown out to Anthony Johnson, to Rashad Evans, that UFC 197 is now going to be headlined by Jon Jones versus Ovince Saint Preux for the interim light heavyweight title. That happened in the span of 5 days. That's insane. Just think about all that stuff. And it was just constantly changing and developments here and there, updates. I mean, it was fun. It was exhausting, but it just once again shows why this is the most interesting beat to be on, in my opinion. As a journalist, there's nothing better than it. 52 weeks a year, it never stops. So, of course, we're going to be talking about all that and a whole lot more on this show. We have it covered from all different angles, and I'll run through the lineup very quickly here. And by the way, last week we talked about the Fox stuff, and I appreciate all the feedback and everyone reaching out. I'll provide a short postscript of that later on in the program, so stay tuned for that. Some FAQs, if you will. But as far as the guests are concerned, this week, Mike Wilkinson will join us at 325 from England. He has some news to break. We'll be joined by him, the featherweight from England, at 305. I said 325 for Mike Wilkinson. At 305, Jon Jones is going to be back for the second week in a row and talking about all the craziness of this past week. So can't wait for that. At 2:45, we're going to be joined by Wanderlei Silva. Yes, Wanderlei Silva, and I believe his first interview since he signed with Bellator and leaving the UFC and all that good stuff and more. So we'll talk to Wanderlei Silva at 2:45. 2:25, Chris Cyborg will join us to talk about her UFC debut on May 14th. 2:05, the aforementioned Ovince Saint Preux. OSP, you down with OSP? Yeah, I guess. He'll be joining us at 2:05. Flyweight Ian McCall at 1:45 will stop by. He's got a lot going on. Greg Jackson at 1:25 will stop by to talk about everything that has happened to Jon over the past week or so. And of course, we'll take your questions and comments. A lot to discuss in the world of MMA, but there was only one way that we could have started this show. There was only one guy I wanted at the top of the show, and he is so very kind enough to join us right off the bat. He is the defending UFC light heavyweight champion. Unfortunately, we found out on Friday he will not be competing at UFC 197 on April 23rd. But I wanted to hear from the man himself. Our good pal, Daniel Cormier, is on the line right now. Daniel, how are you?
What's up, Helwani? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I really appreciate you joining us. I know you've been relatively quiet over the last few days, and it's been a bit of a trying time, except for your WrestleMania break, and we could talk about that a little later on. But first things first, how are you feeling? Physically, how are you on this Monday morning?
Man, it's obviously when you have an injury, you're in some pain, but manageable with ibuprofen, anti-inflammatories. It's manageable, but you want to get out ahead of these things as soon as you can. So that's what I do. I'm not going to sit here and just not do anything. So I'm going to do a procedure this afternoon to try and speed up my recovery.
Okay, let's actually talk about what happened, because there's a lot of different reports out there. What exactly happened to you and when?
So last Friday, actually 2 Fridays ago, not this past week when I had to pull out of the fight. I'm talking about the Friday previous.
Yep.
I was in practice sparring, and I kicked one of my partners, inside low kick, and he checked it, and I fell down. And I was like, that was painful, and Bob Cook was laughing, Javier was laughing, because we get kicks checked all the time, and sometimes you bruise your shin, and a couple days it passes. I got up and started trying to spar again, and another guy did like a little front kick to my shin, and when he did it, I fell on the ground again, and I was like, okay, this hurts a little bit more than normal, so I'm just going to probably stop sparring. So I went and I stopped sparring. Well, a couple people had tweeted me about seeing me at a wrestling tournament limping.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had no choice but to go, man. I'm the coach of my own youth wrestling club. I have my own wrestling team, and it was a state tournament the following day, and I had 16 kids competing. So for them to go and try and win state championships without their coach would be unfair. I went, and I said, man, even if I'm limping, I can explain it away as I kick somebody and I've got a bruise on my shin. So I went with my team to the state tournament. Congratulations to my boys. 10 out of the 60 that went got on the medal stand. Best team performance we ever had. People asked me what was wrong with my leg, and I told them, I just kicked somebody's shin. It's what we do, and it's fine. But there was a lot of swelling, and I imagined that by Monday it was going to get better. Well, on Monday it hadn't gotten better. So then I was like, man, what if I broke my leg? What if I chipped the bone? I should probably get an X-ray. So I went and got an X-ray, and it was obviously no break. And then the doctor said, well, we need to take an MRI because you may have some bleeding and da-da-da. So when I took the MRI, they found that I had torn a ligament in my leg. I don't know how to say the word, but it's like the ligament that connects the two bones in my leg. It makes them kind of work together. So I took the rest of the week to try and see what I could do. I tried to spar. Really had no lateral movement. I couldn't run, couldn't wrestle, couldn't grapple, can't kick, and so it just was not looking good.
So when you made the final decision to not fight, you just realized that you couldn't do it. I noted this. You noted it in your statement that you put out, I believe, Saturday. 18 pro fights. You've never pulled out. You fought through a bunch of things. I mean, from what I understand, you hardly have an ACL in one leg. What was that conversation like? How difficult was that? And who did you ultimately tell that to?
So, Bob, my coaches had been telling me since Tuesday, you can't do anything. We can't fight. And I was like, let's just give it a week, because I'm in great shape. If I can just box, I think I'll be fine. Well, Friday after practice, I was still hobbling around and not able to do that much stuff. And so Bob texted Lorenzo and said, hey, not looking good, man. It's going to take a miracle. And so I got a text from Lorenzo. He said, hey, DC, give me a call. So I called him. He said, hey, it's me and Dana. Calling to see how you're doing. I said, well, I boxed a little bit. I go, but I'm trying. I go, I'm holding out hope that I can get this done, And then something very surprising happened, man, because John and I, we make a lot of money together. And we make a lot of money for the UFC, too. But when I told him I was going to see through the weekend, those guys is like, Daniel, you're hurt. Dr. D said that looking at your MRI, you need 5 to 6 weeks. So even if you sat on your ass for the next 3 weeks to the fight, you still would need at least 2 weeks to start feeling better. And they're like, DC, you've worked very hard to get where you are today. You're the champion. You do not have to go out and fight hurt. And we can't put you in a situation where you're not healthy. We don't want you to be fighting under those circumstances. So they essentially made the decision for me.
Wow.
I begged them. I was like, give me till Monday, please. Give me till Monday. And they were like, we can give you till Monday, but what's going to change over 3 days? You're hurt. We really don't want to put you in this situation where you're not at 100%. So it was very, very crazy because you would expect them to push me to fight.
Yeah.
When in reality, they did the exact opposite and kind of was more understanding and more into what was better for me as an athlete than what was better for the organization.
Well, that is great to hear. I hear that often. I think fighters are sometimes afraid to break that news to Dana and Lorenzo, but I actually hear that often, that they're a lot more understanding than fighters would think going into the discussion. And, what was so interesting about the past week, as I noted at the top of the show, this was a tumultuous week at best for Jon Jones. He was behind bars for 48 hours. And a lot of people were telling me, isn't it weird that DC isn't commenting on it? What was how are you dealing with all of that craziness and that drama? And you're trying to get better, but you also know that your opponent is in jail. Well, were you kind of wishing or hoping that this fight just gets delayed so that you don't actually have to pull out of it?
Midweek, I was still kind of hoping that I would be okay to fight. It's weird, man, because it's like, even though this stuff doesn't happen to you, it's happening to Jon, Jon is the one that's doing this. But it's almost like he takes you on this crazy ride with him that you really don't want to be on. Like, I don't want to be on this ride, this up and down, round and about circle. I just want to be on a straight line. I want my life to be as I intended it to be, but when you're fighting with Jones and all the issues that he's had, he kind of takes you on this roller coaster ride it's emotional, honestly. And so I was trying not to pay too much attention to it because I was trying to hopefully improve to the point that I could fight. But I was just like, man, maybe I'll be okay, and I figured Jon would be okay. Jon's a guy that, even in every situation, he seems to come out okay on the opposite side. So I knew he'd be okay, and I was just hoping to keep the fight together.
What was your reaction when you found out that they were going with OSP as his opponent, that he was staying on the card? Yes, it's not quite UFC 151, but it is somewhat short notice, and they're going with OSP, and they're going with the interim title. How did you process all of that?
That stuff really doesn't bother me all that much. OSP, great guy. Ovince is a great guy, very talented, and one of the younger guys that can make an impact on this division. If it was Jon and Anthony interim title, sure, that's great. The only issue I had was that it was Vince to fight for the interim belt, and I'm not trying to say anything bad about Ovince because he's a great guy. He's a friend of mine, but just the fact that he hadn't fought very well against Fei Zhao, and then he had lost, I think, to Glover right before, was one of the ones that made it different. But this is a statement fight for Jones. This is about as close as we'll ever get in boxing in terms of a tune-up fight. Andre Ward just did it against Barrera before he fights Sergey Kovalev. Most times when the guy's away for a while, they fight a tune-up fight, and this is what this kind of seems like for Vince. But can't count guys out, man. You got to be ready to fight. But this is one where Jon is supposed to come out smelling like roses at the end of it.
Do you think OSP has a shot?
I think everybody has a shot, but I think there's a chance for Ovince to have a better shot. But it's up to him to take it, and that's by coming here. We'll open our doors to him to come and train at the American Kickboxing Academy. I don't care what happens in the future. I can't train with Ovince, but I've got a guy named Cain Velasquez that can train with him. I've got a guy named Luke Rocco that can train with him. I've got a guy named Chai Lewis Perry. Got a guy named Frank Munoz. We have everything in place where he can just take my training camp for the next few weeks. Take my training camp. We will take care of it. We'll fly Ovince and his team out here. We'll put them up, give them a place to stay, because no one in this gym wants to see Jon Jones, not have to fight a tough fight on April 23rd. So, for my pocketbook, Jon needs to go out there and win and look great.
Yeah.
But we want to give Ovince a chance, and every guy on my team, they're willing to play a part in that.
So you are extending an invitation to the guy who is replacing you, fighting for the interim belt, who's fighting your rival, the guy who you said that you need to beat, you want to beat, all that stuff. You're extending an invitation to him to come to San Jose for the next 3 weeks or so to prepare for this fight, and you will help him out?
I'll be one of his coaches. Listen, nobody wants to fight Jon Jones worse than I do.
Right.
So if I can live through Ovince on April 23rd, I will live through Ovince on April 23rd. He can take my training camp. I thought that we had finally the perfect mixture of what we needed in order for our preparation. So yes, Ovince can have my training camp.
Wow.
All paid for, right out of my checking account. Ovince Saint Preux, if you want to come to San Jose, bud, you got a team in the American Kickboxing Academy that's ready to support you.
Well, the good news is he's going to be on in around an hour, so I can extend that invitation to him via you. So I can't wait to hear what he has to say. That is something I did not expect. You mentioned you have a procedure later today. What exactly is being done?
Well, you know that my knee, like my ACL's like been torn forever. So I get stem cells done to my ACL to try and help with the healing. It also takes out some of the inflammation. My leg starts to lock up. I do the stem cells, and it helps. Well, I'm not going to do the surgery. I'm 37 years old. I do surgery in my leg. It may put me out for too long. I want to get back as soon as possible. So I'm going to go and do stem cells in my leg. And hopefully that will help to speed up the process. So I'm going to do stem cells, and I'm also going to get some stuff done to my shoulder. I'm pretty beat up right now, as you would expect when you're in the middle of a hard training camp. But I will do everything in my power to try and get back as soon as I can. So doing some stem cells later today, so I'll be hobbled for a little bit, but, eventually it'll be better.
Are they giving you a timeline? Like, could you be ready for UFC 200 or maybe the following? Like, when do you think realistically, as of now, and I know a lot has to happen later on today and you're going to talk to your doctors, but as of right now, from what you understand, when could you realistically fight again?
If they're telling me in 4 to 6 weeks this thing is supposed to be better, that would leave me with 10 to 12 weeks to train for UFC 200. So, yeah, I could be ready to fight then. The only issue with that is it's a little scary because Jon's fighting in April.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he'd be willing to turn around and fight right back 3 months later. But if he would, I'd love to run it back with him anytime in the summer or, late summer, early summer. It doesn't matter. I don't think it's going to take me that long to recover. I feel like I've made a lot of improvement, man, in this last training camp. Having those real-life kickboxers in there have really helped me. Having my head where my mind is in a good, strong place has really helped me. Knowing my opponent, being in tune with my opponent, watching him train has motivated me. All this stuff has been like a blessing to me. So I feel like I was on track to do something truly special. But unfortunately, I injured myself.
Was this the toughest decision of your career?
In regards to this, yeah.
Yeah.
I've never had to make a decision like this. Now, if I was in the fight and it happened, obviously I would just keep fighting. But to have to go in there knowing that I wasn't 100% was going to be tough. I know what I'm up against. For all the bad blood, all the bad blood, all the negativity that goes on between Jon and I do understand who Jon Jones is. He's the greatest fighter of all time. He's a phenomenal athlete, and the guy can just flat out fight. So when you separate his life out of the octagon and what he does inside of the octagon, I know what I'm up against. So to go in there not at 100% would have been a huge mistake. And I understand that now with the help of all my coaches and the people around me who care about me.
Jon puts out, I don't wish injury upon anyone, but enjoy that belt, Daniel. Then later on, he says so much for willing to die in there, and then deletes it. Kind of the game's continuing, so to speak. What'd you make of him putting that second tweet out there and then getting rid of it?
So my thing is this, like, when you look at the times of these tweets, it's like almost like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. In the day, Jon's one person, and at night, he's a different person. So I think when he's alone in the middle of the night, it's when he actually is just himself, and then he writes stuff like that. It also tells me that, Jon said that, I thought you were willing to die to win this fight. But I have seen that 100 times from fans writing that to me when I had to pull out of the fight. So it tells me that he's being himself, but it also tells me that he's up reading tweets and he's taking these people's stuff and kind of using it. I think at times we give Jon a little more credit for being more clever than he really is. So I think he stumbled across this whole deleting tweets thing. He was deleting them because he thought he would get in trouble, but now it's kind of become a thing, so it seems clever. Some of the things he says seems clever, but I think he kind of stumbles across it. He's obviously not the smartest guy.
As you know, UFC 200 has been met with mixed reactions, and I think when people found out this news, at least the ones who didn't have tickets to 197, they were like, wow, silver lining is we might get this fight on 200, and this fight is probably the closest thing we have to Frank Mir and Brock Lesnar that made 100 so special. Did you express your potential interest in fighting at 200 because that card isn't complete just yet? And is the UFC open to that? Are they keeping a slot open for you? Do you have any idea?
They haven't said anything to me about that. Those guys are they're very respectful to my injury. They're going to allow me to try and get healthy and then approach the next thing. This is not pressing. Jon has to get through this fight with Ovince Saint Preux first. And if Ovince comes out here as we've offered, we think we can really help him. But if Jon gets through this as he's supposed to, because this is for him to look good. If he gets through this as he's supposed to, if he wants to fight, I'm pretty sure they could make the fight happen. It'll still be 3 months away. But this is a guy that hadn't done a training camp for a while, and then for everything that I've heard or seen him say, he's trained extremely hard, so he may need a little bit of downtime. I don't know. I can't think for that man, but I'd be ready to go. It'd be perfect for me, actually.
A final thing on the injury, just so I'm clear, is this the same leg as the leg that you're missing the ACL?
Yeah.
Damn.
That's probably why it was so hard to really balance on it. You know? So look, man, I don't want to make excuses for anything.
Sure.
I just want to fight. I just want my career to go as it's supposed to be. I want to train hard. I want to be in the gym every day and just work. I just want to work, man. I enjoy my job. I enjoy fighting. I love the sport. I love competition. I just want to work, man. I just want to do my thing and fight and compete to the best of my ability every time I'm out there.
Wouldn't it be something if he wins on April 23rd and then he gets on the mic and says, Daniel Cormier, I'm waiting for you? A little, reversal of roles.
I think, honestly, that would be very, very smart of him to come up with something to say in that moment.
Yeah.
But in that moment, when he has to go on the fly, we'll truly see how clever Jon Jones really is. I don't anticipate it being very good. I don't anticipate it being as good as the fire that I have. I've thrown some good stuff at him in my octagon interviews, so I don't anticipate him actually being that good.
Last thing, and again, thank you so much. I know you have a busy day, so this really means a lot, DC. We really appreciate it. Scale of 1 to 10, how much did you enjoy WrestleMania?
Man, I enjoyed it because it's WrestleMania. The show was long. It was longer than I think it's ever been.
Yeah.
And I honestly thought that it could have been booked a little differently at times.
Oh.
I felt like they only went against the grain with the Zack Ryder thing, winning the championship. Thought Sasha Banks should have walked out with the championship. Thought they should have took the opportunity to turn Roman Reigns heel. There's just a few things. The New Day loss. Why does Chris Jericho need to beat AJ Styles at this point in his career? Makes no sense. Brie Bella's retiring today. They could have given her a little bigger platform to tell her story. Just a little bit different, but overall I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Snoop Dogg and walking Sasha Banks in the match. I thought the women's match was the best match the whole night, which is the first time I've ever felt like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
No mention of Shane O'Mac. I'd even watch it, but I heard Shane O'Mac jumped off a cage. I heard Shaq showed up, right? No mention of that.
Shaq was funny. Shaq and the Big Show were just standing there looking all weird, and they eliminated him, and they hugged on the way out. That was cool. Seeing Shaq do that was cool. The Shane McMahon match was okay. It wasn't look, Ariel. Of course, you're talking from a guy, a rookie, a newbie. I'm a guy that's experienced in this WWE watching game, so I watched the match and I give it ratings, and I would not give this a 5-star rating. Yes,
okay.
The high spots were good. They're called high spots whenever they do big things in matches.
Oh, right.
The high spots were great, but just the overall match wasn't the best match. Because it's just predictable.
I love when the Mark in DC comes out. It's great. It's a beautiful thing, and it's a good way to end on a more positive note. Again, get well soon, my friend. Good luck later on today, and we hope this is just a small little hiccup and that we can see you back there. Hopefully UFC 200, that'd be great. If not, a little after. But again, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about all this, DC. Thank you wholeheartedly.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it, man. Hey, give Oliver some love. Talk to you later, bud.
That's my guy. Thank you very much. DC with a shout out to my oldest son, Oliver. Very cool of him. I appreciate that greatly.